Burnout, a state of mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion that can be caused by chronic stress. It can occur in many areas of life, including work, parenting, caretaking, or romantic relationships, but is most often associated with job-related stress.
Not just a figure of speech anymore. It's actually been declared a legitimate medical diagnosis by the World Health Organization.
It is officially defined
as syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed.
And there are three main symptoms.
Here they are: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job or negativity and cynicism related to one's job, and reduced professional effectiveness.
Check, check, and check. No, I'm kidding. NBC News medical correspondent who's very invigorated and happy to be here this morning, Dr. John Torres. So, I mean, a lot of people certainly have times of stress at their jobs. How do you know if you're actually experiencing this condition known as burnout?
You know, it's interesting when people hear the symptoms, they're like, okay, I've been there before. I've
Yes.
seen it. And we all have stress. Stress goes hand in hand with what we do every single day, but we're able to handle that stress, and that's what we do as humans. We get the stress, we handle it, we get it under control, come back the next day, do it over and over again. If that stress goes continuous, then it starts turning into burnout. And burnout is one of those things that doesn't go away. And I always tell people, you can tell you have burnout if you simply just don't want to go into work, don't want to be there, or having issues with work. And so again, the two go hand in hand. Stress is something we can handle and control. Burnout, not necessarily.
Or what can we do about it? I mean, a lot of folks have jobs that are very stressful, and oftentimes I would imagine that is what leads to the burnout.
You can quit on live TV.
No.
I'm not quite there yet.
First and foremost, you want to recognize the symptoms. You want to recognize the cynicism, the fact that you're at work and you simply don't want to be there. You're burning out. You're not able to enjoy the things you used to enjoy. Try and take time off from work if you can. And that means just completely disconnecting. And like you said, over the 3-day holiday, hopefully people were able to do that and they were able to get away a little bit, and that can reinvigorate you. And if worse comes to worse and none of these seem to be working, then simply look for another job if you can. Consider changing jobs.
What can management do to help alleviate this?
So management can do a couple of things, and one of them is they can give you time off where they don't contact you and they don't get a hold of you, and that's probably the biggest thing, because we've all been there on the weekends where we're answering emails and taking care of things. If you can just check out completely, and I tell people, imagine if you just went on a camping trip and you couldn't answer your cell phone for 3 days, or you couldn't get an email for 3 days. That's the kind of break you need, and it might not be 3 days long, but you need it every now and then. And if you're getting to the point, look at your employees. If they look like they're starting to burn out, if they're starting to be cynical, if they're starting to be a little snippy at work and arguing with each other, productivity is going down, that's probably a good sign that burnout's starting to happen. And that's when a good manager needs to come in and say, we need to take.
But if you can't realistically quit or get a new job, is there anything that you can do, just little things on the job every day to help out?
So there's little things you can do on the job to help out. And again, first and foremost, recognize that burnout is happening and try and see if you can disconnect a little bit. Talk to your managers and say, hey, this is one of those things I really want to take care of. I really want to get under control. And then when you go home, a big thing to think about is simply get away from this for a while. Even if it's just for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, disconnect from your cell phone so you're not constantly on it. And that doesn't just necessarily mean work, but social media as well.
Even if you could take a little walk at work or something, it would probably help a little bit.
Me time is extremely important.
Yeah.
And the thing is you don't want to work, you don't want to live to work, you want to work to live. That's the big thing.
Dr. John.
Thank you very much.
Related burnout is a significant problem for the economy. Now, Deloitte's 2015 Workplace Burnout Survey, they observed that 77% of US professionals had experienced burnout at some point in their lives. In 2018, Gallup got similar results. A quarter of workers felt burnt out either very often or always, and an additional 44% felt burnt out occasionally. Now, my name's
First, this sense of emotional exhaustion. Are you really, really exhausted? Not just physically exhausted, but emotionally exhausted. When you take a weekend off, are you still as depleted when you go back on Monday morning? And does it really feel like a form of exhaustion that's very emotional? It's not just that you're tired, but that you're feeling really depressed, that emotionally you're on just a really short fuse. Are you experiencing changes in how you relate to people at your work? Either the people that you serve, your clients, your patients, or the people that you work with? Are you embarrassed about the length of your fuse? Do you feel like you're going through some compassion fatigue? That's a clear sense that you're experiencing depersonalization. And is your sense of meaning going away in terms of what you're doing? Do you feel like your work has changed, that you simply can't do a good job right now because of some of the structures of what you're asked to do or the fairness in your own institution? If you're answering yes to some of those questions, you may be on the verge of burnout, and it's important to address that before it gets worse.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mark Akins, Mr. Challenge Your Perception. I'm here today to talk to you all about two books that I have put together. My latest creation, 111 Quotes to Challenge Your Perception. It's going to be available on Amazon.com. And while you're on there, you might want to also take a look at Challenge Your Perception of Cold Calling, one of my famous books here. And if you're going to get into sales, or if you know someone who's in sales, or if you have someone whose success is being held ransom by anxiety, this is the book for you. Ladies and gentlemen, these are available on Amazon.com. Again, my name is Mark Akins, Mr. Challenge Your Perception, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Number 1, you feel disconnected from everything. Are you going through the motions of every day as if on autopilot? Is there a persistent feeling of being detached from your own self? If you're suffering from burnout, one of the things you might be experiencing but don't quite realize or understand is depersonalization. People experiencing depersonalization, most commonly those struggling with trauma, report feeling a strange sort of emotional numbness or emptiness, as if they were watching life from outside of themselves. They don't feel like themselves anymore. They don't feel engaged by anything, and they constantly struggle with the overwhelming sense of helplessness and inability to take back control of their lives. Number 2, you used to be motivated. Laziness is a character trait, and character traits tend to remain stable over time. A lazy person doesn't ever feel like exerting effort or applying themselves to things. But if you used to be self-motivated and high-achieving, often excelling in certain areas, and have only recently become exhausted, apathetic, and unmotivated, then it's more likely that you're suffering from burnout and not laziness like most people would think. Number 3, you used to be passionate. A clear difference between someone who's burnt out and someone who's lazy is that the former used to have things they were passionate about, but may now be struggling to find interest or enjoyment in anymore. Whether it's a talent, a sport, or just your academic or professional performance in general, burnout can make it hard for you to do the things you once loved or felt passionate about. You might even come to hate or resent it because of how much you overworked yourself and pushed yourself to the brink because of it. Ouch. Number 4, you've become moody and irritable. Do you suddenly find yourself snappy and easily irritated? Do you often feel emotionally out of control nowadays and don't know why? Moodiness and irritability are common but often overlooked signs of burnout. So if you start to have trouble controlling your emotions, especially when it never used to be a problem for you, this might be the reason why. Lazy people, on the other hand, are a stark contrast to this because they're often very relaxed, laid back, placid, and unaffected by things. Number 5, you've neglected your self-care. One of the most distressing warning signs that someone may be emotionally and physically burnt out is if you start neglecting your self-care and socially withdraw from others. There are concerning changes in your eating and or sleeping patterns. You stop making an effort to groom yourself or look good, and you tend to spend most of your time by yourself doing nothing because you're so easily exhausted by even the simplest of tasks. The difference between being burnt out and laziness are starkly in the fact that you weren't always this way. And number 6, these changes happened gradually. Finally, but perhaps most importantly, something you should know about burnout is that it develops in stages. So all of the points mentioned before, losing interest and motivation, especially in things we used to love, feeling detached from yourself and disconnected from everything around you, socially withdrawing and neglecting your self-care, won't just happen overnight. Studies show that there are actually 5 major stages of burnout, each with increasing degrees of severity. The honeymoon phase, the onset of stress, chronic stress, burnout, and habitual burnout. Many people begin to experience symptoms as early as the 2nd phase, when there is still a moderate amount of stress, but optimism, interest, motivation, and performance may already start declining. And by the time you reach the 5th and final stage, burnout has already become so embedded in your life that the persistent mental and physical fatigue become more intense and harder to treat, making you more vulnerable to developing depression and anxiety. Spotting the signs of burnout early makes it all the more easier for you to get help and recover from it. That's why it's so important to raise awareness about burnout instead of simply dismissing it as laziness, like most people tend to do. So if you or anyone you know may be suffering from mental or emotional burnout, please please don't hesitate to reach out to a mental health care professional today and talk to them about it. If you find this video helpful, be sure to hit the like button. Feel free to leave a comment down below with your thoughts, experiences, and suggestions.
Are you looking for a cuddly companion that brings positivity and mental wellness to your daily life?